Hi, Dr. Ron, and this is being recorded on the day of celebration of Juneteenth, the at least in the United States. This is the day when federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas on June 19th, 1965, to advise the last of the enslaved African American slaves that they are now free, that slavery ended actually 2.5 years earlier in the United States with the Emancipation Proclamation. But June 19th, 1965 was when the last of the enslaved African Americans learned of this, and it has become an increasingly important holiday over the years. It's a holiday in which all of us, regardless of our race, religion, national origin, or whatever, can take some connection, because most of us don't come from aristocracy or nobility, and most of us can trace our ancestry back to a time when some of our ancestors were slaves or serfs, or in other ways, were kind of on low rungs of the totem pole. Um, the strive has been toward equality, and in that way, all of us can take pride in the end of slavery and the increasing, hopefully increasing opportunities for more people to advance in an unlimited way. But actually, slavery didn't really end at that time. Some of the worst offenses from a slavery standpoint are those that we commit toward each other. And that's really the focus of today's video, is the fact that for many of us, we put bonds and chains on ourselves by the demands we put on ourselves, by our willingness to tolerate less from ourselves than from others, by our failure to recognize moves in the right direction and be self-critical of the fact that we haven't achieved greatness or whatever. The fact is that many of us are so hard on ourselves that we, in fact, are not only subjecting ourselves to slavery-like conditions, but we are also the slaveholders. In many, many cases, nobody is telling us the things about ourselves that we tell ourselves. Many of us are never experiencing the kinds of harshness from other people or the kind of criticism from other people that we experience from ourselves. Now, we can't always control what other people say, and that's probably the subject of another video, but we can commit ourselves to say that we are free people. We have to really not behave as if we're operating under chains or under certain kinds of pressures that nobody has imposed upon us but ourselves. Too many people live out their lives not pursuing their dreams, not trying things, not taking risks that could lead to success, because they are telling themselves that they're not good enough. Please don't be one of them, because let's call it what it is. That's slavery. You're putting yourself in bondage when you don't allow yourself the gamut of opportunities that are afforded in this great but imperfect world in which we live. Don't make it less great. Don't make it more imperfect by imposing experiences on yourself, imposing limitations on yourself making yourself both the slaveholder and the slave. Try and think of whether you do this to yourself. Are there things that you're not trying, not because anybody else is preventing you from doing so, but because you don't think you're good enough? There is rarely a downside to doing rational risk-taking. There can be a downside to doing irrational risk-taking, but rational risk-taking, where the consequences aren't necessarily disastrous, may just mean you're not getting what you want, but don't help that process along the way by not trying to get what you want. So the message of Juneteenth should not be lost on any of us, regardless of our background. The lesson of Juneteenth really is, if we're free, let's act like free men and women. Let's do the gamut of things that we are capable of doing and trying to be our best, the best versions of ourselves. And even then, if we fall short and tried, the consequences are probably not nearly as bad as holding yourself back from trying something that there's a part of you that recognizes you could achieve. Think about that. Make sure that you're not being the slaveholder and the slave to yourself. And let's put the effort that leads to our own awesomeness. Achieving awesomeness is part of being human. Take care. Do your best. Look forward to speaking with you again. Dr. Ron Kaiser, wishing you the very best of success moving forward. And please visit us at the Mental Health Gem website.